This is a labor market overview of the oil and gas sector. This information was compiled and originally presented by Christian St. Cyr, who is the community engagement person for the Lower Mainland for GT Hiring Solutions. Christian is also the publisher of the BC Labor Market Report. Let's first talk about crude oil. Canada has about 179 billion barrels of established crude oil reserves. This is more than any other country in the world except for Saudi Arabia. About 170 billion barrels of Canada's oil reserves, or about 97% of those reserves, is in the oil sands. Canada right now stands as the world's sixth largest producer of crude oil and currently produces close to 2.8 million barrels of crude oil every single day. Of those 2.8 million barrels, about 2 million barrels per day, or about two-thirds of Canada's production, is exported. And oil production is forecast to reach at least 4.2 million barrels per day by the year 2020. Let's next talk about natural gas. Canada is the world's third largest producer of natural gas, only after the United States and Russia. Canada currently produces 15.4 billion cubic feet per day of natural gas and exports about 9 billion cubic feet per day of that 15.4, so about 58% is exported. Canada's proven natural gas reserves were between 700 and 1,300 trillion cubic feet as of 2010. The natural gas industry has a significant impact on Canada's economy, contributing approximately 106 billion in direct value to the Canadian economy. And as of 2010, the Canadian natural gas industry directly employed over 172,000 people. Let's talk about wells. In 2010, there were 12,343 wells drilled across Canada, while over 15,000 wells were expected to be drilled in 2012. And on average, 798 drilling rigs and 817 service rigs were operating in Canada in 2010. Next up, let's talk about pipelines. Canada has more than 825,000 kilometers of pipelines, and the majority of this pipeline network is underground. If laid end to end, these could circle the Earth 20 times. Now, oil travels through a pipeline at 4 to 8 kilometers per hour, which is roughly walking speed. At this pace, it may take a month or more to carry crude oil to the end customer. However, natural gas moves through a pipeline up to 40 kilometers per hour, which is about the speed of an Olympic runner. Natural gas can travel from Alberta, say, to southern Ontario in about 6 days. And the province of Alberta alone has 1,000 kilometers of energy-related pipelines. So almost half of the pipelines in Canada exist in Alberta alone. So now let's talk about careers in the oil and gas sector. By 2035, it is estimated that the oil sands alone are expected to support 905,000 jobs as a result of new investments in production and processing. Jobs in the petroleum industry can be found across Canada from BC to Newfoundland and Labrador. The oil and gas industry is truly a national industry, with oil and gas activity in 12 of our 13 provinces and territories across Canada. The pipeline sector alone employs nearly 9,000 workers. So what kind of qualifications do you need in order to work in oil and gas? The oil and gas industry is a significant source of employment in northeastern British Columbia, and skilled workers are always in demand. Now, qualifications could include degrees, they could include diplomas, certificates, and technical training. Here are some of the common occupation classifications in the oil and gas sector: engineers, geoscience professionals, operators, business services, technicians, technologists, and trade persons. Some of the common job titles include drillers, surveyors, heavy equipment operators, class 1 and 3 drivers, engineers, electricians, mechanics, millwrights, welders, and pipe fitters, to name a few. Entry-level workers are in high demand. These jobs do not require academic qualifications higher than a grade 12 diploma. However, safety certifications are key to these roles, along with a valid driver's license and personal protective equipment, or PPE. Some entry-level job titles available in the oil and gas sector include pipeline laborer, helper, such as perforator loader, tubing, well pulling, wireline, oil field laborer, shop hand, swamper, seismic helper, and lease hand. Now, routine working conditions in the oil and gas sector generally involve outdoor work. Work is primarily outdoors, and you can work in -40 to +30 degrees Celsius. Work doesn't stop when it's cold outside. There are also working conditions that are very hazardous. You're frequently working in or around potentially hazardous equipment, chemicals, explosives, etc. All safety precautions and adherence to safety regulations are strictly enforced in this sector. Because you're working in and around hazardous equipment, this requires proper safety certifications. Some of the basic certifications that you need are Level 1 First Aid, which is generally $150 or thereabouts to obtain. You need H2S Alive, which is generally about $200 to obtain. And you may need other tickets, including WHMIS, TDG, which is Transportation of Dangerous Goods, and PST, Petroleum Safety Training. So what are day-to-day working conditions like in the oil and gas sector? Well, they are labor intensive. It requires physical fitness because you will be involved in heavy lifting, pulling, agility, walking long distance, standing for hours on end. Your day-to-day work will also include lots of overtime. Overtime is a regular requirement, and a shift often ranges from 12 to 14 hours a day. Day-to-day work will also involve shift or rotational work. Work may involve regular evening, night, and or extended shifts, such as rotational work, which could mean 2 weeks in, 1 week out, or 14 days on, 8 days off, that sort of thing. It's entirely possible that you will be doing rotational work. Another thing to be aware of is that you may be involved in going to remote locations. Work is typically conducted in remote or isolated locations. This may involve prolonged regular absences from home. It could also involve camp work. You may be sent to a camp for extended periods of time. Now, not all positions require you to go to camp. In fact, a lot do not. But it's highly recommended to have accommodation in the city in case you have to go to a camp. You can go to the website www.fsjnow.com to take a look at some accommodation options. Lastly, alcohol and drug testing. Employers will be doing this testing prior to hiring, and many employers also do ongoing alcohol and drug testing checks because many work environments can be hazardous, so this testing is routinely done. And that's our overview of the oil and gas sector. For some links and resources, you can go to www.careersinoilandgas.com or www.energyservicesbc.org. If you're interested in pursuing a career in the oil and gas sector, please speak to anyone at GT Hiring Solutions. Thanks very much for watching.